That summer I fell for you whilst listening to the best of The Cure together. God willing, all the king's men can mend us again and lock us away forever. Together until I find something better, or at least better dressed. It's only a small procedure. This is only a walk to lead you through. Ooh, good as new. Throw your hair from a tallest tower. Shine your light in your darkest hour. Out of the blue, good as new. One summer, come up and see me at Clacton-on-Sea. You'll be glad you agreed. The ice creams are on me, and oh, it looks like it's all so easy. This is only a war to lead you through. Ooh, good as new, but every love is a broken ego. Every boy was a local hero, lost to the blue, good as new. Only love alone. This is only alone. You've eased into. Thank you. Cheers.
So I should have said before, by the way, my name's Ali Donowho, and I'll be chatting with Robert tonight. And we're going to try and get in a bit more behind the music and more about the person himself. So it's like a psychology session with people watching you.
Awesome.
So in other words, it's like Big Brother or any other reality TV show. So Robert Shields,
Yes.
grew up in...
All over, weirdly. I was born in Glasgow originally, but I grew up in the Highlands of Scotland and on the Black Isle for a number of years, and then moved down here to Dumfries and Galloway, where I've lived most of my life. So, yeah.
And spent your formative years, was it in Annan?
No, Annan's a very recent thing
Right.
for me. Castle Douglas is my neck of the woods. ONR, that's where I went to school and stuff.
So when was it that you realised that music was something that was going to be for you moving forward in life?
There was never a conscious decision, to be honest with you. It was. I just always kind of assumed that when I was a kid, I just always assumed that I would do music, which sounds. I know that sounds like really arrogant and really sort of like, of course I'm going to be a musician. But it wasn't really like that. I just, I knew it would be hard and I would take knocks and all the usual kind of stuff, but I just never really considered doing anything else. Never had a plan B or anything. Even as a kid, it was just everything I was obsessed with. We had an old piano out in the shed that about half the keys worked on, and I would go out and sort of tinker around on it. So yeah.
To be fair, it doesn't sound arrogant in the slightest, because if you look at people like Tiger Woods and David Beckham, that was their sole focus in life as well.
Yeah, we've reached the same kind of level, haven't we? So.
Well, actually, they're here next week, so and I can't wait to hear Bex playing his cello. So yeah, so I think we met about 10, 11, we met a while ago.
Yeah.
And I think that was off the back of a video that you made up at the convent with Abby and Stephen from Purple Box.
Wow, yeah.
When you were with Finding Albert.
Finding Albert days, yeah.
Because back in those days, that's where I used to be part of a live radio, which was the community radio station for Dumfries, which was directly below. Now, this is a radio studio that is broadcasting live across Dumfries, and we've got some young pups making a heck of a noise upstairs, recording a video backwards.
Yeah.
That which is, Yeah. And what song was that for again?
Disconnect, I think, was the song, if I remember rightly.
Yeah.
And basically what we had to do was a one-shot thing. I remember we just had to basically play the song, and then obviously in post they would flip it.
Yeah.
I think I had to. It was a weird thing where I had to sing it backwards or something.
I was going to say, did you not at the time learn how to sing it backwards?
I genuinely can't remember, which is kind of weird, but yeah.
But it was a while ago.
It was, yeah. It was definitely a while ago. But yeah, that was a scary place as well, the convent.
It still is.
Yeah.
It's even scarier now because there's not a window intact. So it looks a bit scary. So, like we'll talk a bit more about Finding Albert a little bit later on. But before Finding Albert, was there bands before that, or was it Robert on his own?
Yeah, it was me on. I was a singer-songwriter for years and years. Came straight out of school, naivest kid of all time, just wanting to go and be a pop star. And so yeah, I did my little sort of piano thing for a number of years and released an album. A shocking album.
We must find this album.
No, please do not find this album. I think I've managed to burn every last one, but
so it's not on digital?
No.
That's unfortunate.
But yeah, so I was, and do you know, I learnt so. Looking back, I was just so naive, and but there was an energy to that as well. Do you know, I remember I used to sit in my bedroom, and I had Music Week book, the book that you could buy it, and it had like record companies and management companies and things. And I used just to sit and with a marker and go through every single one, phone them, and give them my like web details and CDs and things. And I mean, utterly pointless. Like, if you're ever thinking of doing that as a musician, it's the worst idea ever. Like, don't phone anybody because it's pointless. It's totally pointless.
But they're nice to you though? No,
not at all. They were awful to me. Which was a lesson in itself, I guess.
Well, this has turned into a nice story.
But I guess the point I'm making is, like, I didn't have a clue what I was doing at that point. I was really just learning as I went, and same with live stuff and everything. Like, I was very much like a kind of Chris Martin head down, like, kind of thing. And so yeah, it was brilliant. I loved it. And again, as much as my demo album was not great, it did enough for me at that time to kind of boost my career, and I went to LA for the first time and started doing all that stuff when I was like 17, 18, which was like mind-blowing, literally mind-blowing.
So that you just saying LA there just reminded me of a wee story, and I believe because when you used to write music for companies,
yeah.
And I believe at some point you wrote some music that may have been used on Sky's call centre.
That's right, yeah.
And?
Yeah, I phoned Sky one day. My internet had cut out or something, and I was raging. I was really angry, and then they put me on hold to my music. And I was like, I'm probably earning like a penny an hour. Like, listen to this.
So did that appease you? Did that make you angrier?
I don't. To be honest with you, it did appease me. It's very hard to stay angry at yourself, essentially. So yeah, it's mad. But yes, that's how I stayed alive for a good number of years. Really, I fell in with a really good friend of mine called Ronnie, who, again, we started as a sort of recording thing when I was working for as a singer-songwriter at that time. But he did this on the side. He wrote for adverts and things, and thank God he got me into it, because it really did. It sustained me as a musician for so long, and it taught me loads about just how to survive as a musician, because nothing improves your musicality quite like having to do it to stay alive. Do you know what I mean? So like, if we got a pitch through for, we need some French jazz piano, I'd be like, yep, I can do that, no problem. You know, and just sort of figure out how to do it then. So it was great. It was really, really good. Taught me loads.
Did you ever get anything that you really thought, I shouldn't be doing this, but I have to?
My entire career, mate. Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, there's quite a bit like that. I mean, like, everything's a bit like that, you know. I think it's sort of, there's always a sort of balance between your own artistry and, like, trying to do things to sort of either promote yourself or pay the bills or get in with somebody else or whatever. You know, there's a little bit of a balance to everything, I guess. But it's just, you know, everybody's job's a little like that, isn't it? You've got
the work-life balance and everything that goes along with it. Yeah. So when you came back from LA, when did the idea, I mean, one of the favourite hometown bands in Dumfries has always been, and still is, randomly, has been Finding Albert. So where did the brainchild of that come from?
So yeah, so I had this little LA adventure when I was 17, 18, and at the time I signed to a little publishing deal and everything was going great, and at the time, again, I hadn't known anything else, so I was like, this is great, this must be what life is for a musician. And then it all sort of fell to bits, as these things do. And I was pretty caught up about it. I didn't think I was at the time, but looking back, I definitely was. Because I didn't know if that was my shot, do you know what I mean? Yeah. And sort of 18, 19, and it's sort of going. But I kind of made my mind up that the next thing I wanted to do, I didn't want to do a singer-songwriter thing again. I found it quite lonely, I found it quite isolating. So I really wanted to play in a band. I'd never played in a band to that point. And I did some recordings with Grant Henderson. At the time it was Machine Rooms, now Lovers Lane, yeah. And we put a band together, and he introduced me to some characters who formed the band Finding Albert.
Shall we say characters is an understatement? I have had the displeasure of being live on the radio, and I have never been nervous on the radio, but you ask a certain Mr. Irvin to come into the studio.
Terrifying.
And it's absolutely, you don't know what's coming next.
Genuinely terrifying.
Lovely guy.
Dash.
I was being nice, okay? But yeah, and then of course Finding Albert was born, and it shot really, really quickly.
Yeah, it's probably the most important, probably the most sort of important formative thing I've done as a musician was set up Finding Albert and get into that world of touring and playing, you know, right across, I mean, Europe and Australia and everything. I mean, we did everything. It was crazy. I mean, but it was all DIY. We never had a manager. We never had a label. But we didn't have anybody. It was just us doing it all, taking on the world in a Ford Transit. You know what I mean? Amazing. And it was so educational for me. Learning how to play to audiences was massive for me. You know, learning how to engage an audience. Mark Irvin taught me loads about that. Playing with him was an education in itself, because to him, the audience is just the most important thing, which sounds really obvious, but he will always perform to the audience. So
he never performs to anybody else.
He's so switched on, and I'd never really considered that before. I was just sort of in my own little world, and which is nice as well. But like,
we should also point out that Mark was one of the original members with Calvin Harris.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Mark and Sean McCall as well before Calvin, Adam. When did he go? I can't. I grew up one street away from him. Really? I still to this day will never call him Calvin. I'll call him Adam and other things, but never that. So do you want to give us another song?
Of course. Yeah.
And then we'll chat a bit more as how life has progressed.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's funny. I had a Finding Albert song up my sleeve actually, so I'll probably play that if that's okay.
Ah, great.
So this was the first song we ever released actually. A song called Pulse. And in the end, I left a little early, too fascinated by the call. It's spoken of, but rarely documented. The many ways a man can fall. a song came from the window, a melody, a broken chord. My eyes were dead, my body failing, but I stayed awake a minute more. Put me in the water, let me go. Oh, one day we might understand it all. Put me in water, keep me cold. Oh, one day I will steer this body home. And in the sea, the waves rose high above me, the culmination of the day. And with every regret scattered around me, I knelt and gave myself away. Put me in the water, let me go. Oh, one day we might understand it all. Put me in water, keep me cold. Oh, one day I will steer this body home. Thank you. Cheers. Thanks.
It's very strange sitting this close to him watching him do it, because I'm not going to be out where yourselves
Don't stare at you while I'm doing it.
No, don't. It's really, really creepy. I feel like I'm looking at you really creepily as well.
Yeah.
The first living room session we did, I had a handheld mic, like Robert does, and I decided I'm not going to go for that because I was really tempted to join in singing with the last guy. And this guy, no, because there's notes he reaches that I would have to be injured to get to. So when we look at the days of Finding Albert and the EPs and the albums, we had Finding Albert.
Yeah.
And then we had Faints.
Yes.
And Faints was the, I think in a lot of people's eyes, Faints was the album that was going to make Finding Albert.
That's interesting here, actually, yeah, because I think we kind of thought that it would be a really important album for us, yeah. Because everything was DIY, we'd done everything ourselves, but we were starting to get things and we were starting to get little looks here and there, and we felt that this album would be sort of the thing that might sort of push us into, not stratospheric or anything, but might set us up with a label or might set us up with some management that could do stuff for us or something. And again, it just never really quite happened for Finding Albert. I feel like I can talk about Finding Albert from a distance now. I feel like I'm a fan more than like I was in it, which is kind of weird.
Well, I have to say, I still have my Finding Albert Faints t-shirt.
But do you know, especially around here, loads of people speak to me about Finding Albert all the time, like, constantly. Like, it's really nice.
There was a lot of songs on the Faints album that were anthemic to the people of Dumfries.
Yeah.
There was one song well, there's actually two songs I'm going to talk about, but there was one song in particular that a lot of people imagined was because the band contained Mark Irvine.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
Yeah, right? So, I can't remember the name of the song just now. Favourite Son?
A Famous Friend.
Famous Friend. So there was this song on the Faints album that was called A Famous Friend, and it talked about how This person used to deliver the courier, and it was a lot of working at Palmerston. And there's a lot of local references in it, and the majority of people that listened to that and knew that Mark Irvine was in the band automatically assumed that it was written about Adam Wiles, aka Calvin Harris.
Yeah.
And the truth behind that is
totally incorrect. It was deeply embarrassing when I realised that as well, because it was not about. It was about somebody that I had known back in the day. You know, somebody who basically had this external existence through a famous friend that they kind of half knew, and you know, big name dropper and things. You know, it was nothing to do with any of that. I'm sure Cal was fine with it instead.
I'm sure.
I mean, I'm sure he didn't even hear of it. But yeah, a few people mentioned that actually to me, which was a little bit embarrassing, because I'm not, you know, I don't think I'm going to write any diss tracks anytime soon, to be honest.
But the thing is, it's not a diss track.
No.
If you actually listen to it, it's not a diss track. But this is what I love about music. It's down to the individual listener's interpretation.
Totally. And I always think that's so important as well. I always think there's, like, I've got all the time in the world for people who can write really literally. I think that's such a skill. Like, it's the hardest thing to do is to write, like, I went to the shops and I bought some milk and I saw this on the way home, and not just have it sound terrible. Like, it's really, really difficult to do that. Like, my lyrics are a little bit more ambiguous and a little bit more sort of...
I don't know, you mentioned ice cream and Clacton-on-Sea before.
See, this is the thing though, it's picking your moments. That's the thing.
I actually sat there and gave that a nod. I was like, I like that.
But yeah, so there was a few things, a few little moments in the album that were a bit like that. So.
But I just think it's great how the hive mind of Dumfries automatically assumed that he was a member in one band. Oh, now he's a member of another band. Oh, and we have a song called Famous Friend. And that's the road that it took.
Yeah.
Well,
I kind of love that as well, though. Like, I like that once you finish a song and you send it out into the world, it's no longer yours. Like, like people are interpreting it in their own completely different way. And, you know, like you say, if that's hundreds of people who's to say that they are right and you're wrong. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just because you wrote it doesn't give you any sort of more ownership over it.
And you want people to take ownership of the songs, because that's how it becomes. Within that album as well, and I've told you this story before, there was a song called Ida.
Yes.
Right? Now, Ida, it's a beautiful song. It's slow, it's ballady, and it was on our system on the radio station. Do you remember this story? Right, and I had gone in, I was taking over from a presenter to do my show at 6 o'clock, and he was finishing with a Finding Albert track, because we had the hometown show coming up at the weekend when we did the Final Albert show. So this presenter shall remain nameless. And Ida, it's quite clear what it said, and he finished his show with, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for everybody who's listened tonight, and here's Finding Albert with IDA. And I'm like, that makes it sound like a beer. So, but I mean, it was, and there was such because we had, at the time, we had Alive, we had Melissa Gunn with the Thursday night showcase on, and then she went on to do Small Town Sounds, and has followed like local musicians' careers a lot. But it wasn't long after the hometown show that Finding Albert started to almost peter out. Yeah. It didn't just end. It went down a slope, first of all, when the first member of the band decided that he couldnn't do it any longer.
Yeah, totally. It's a regret of mine, actually, the way that Finding Albert ended, I think, because I think we'd reached the point that we kind of knew the game was up, like, because we were getting like tour offers in Australia and like gig offers for festivals in America, and we couldn't make it work. Like, we couldn't make the finances work. We couldn't get people time and jobs and things. There was no label supporting us. There was not, and it just got to the point where we just couldn't make it work anymore. You know, we wanted to broaden our horizons and do more, but actually we were just banging our heads against the brick wall all the time. And again, I feel like I can talk as a fan now a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Because I feel like we should have got more opportunities, to be totally honest with you, but we didn't. And so and again, I was kind of the mindset that, again, like I'd done before, I felt the time was right to do something else. Like everything that we'd learnt with Finding Albert, the audience that we'd built, the experience that we'd had, we could now put that into something new and fresh and sort of create something. So yeah, we spoke to the band about it, and they were all on board with it, with the exception of Neil, who at that point was leaving anyway. He couldn't do Australia and stuff because of work commitments and things. So he had left, and so we agreed to kind of do this new thing. And as you know, the boys all still play with me today, and like very, very close friends. But I kind of assumed that the transition from Finding Albert to ONR would sort of take everybody with us as well, and everybody would kind of know what was happening, and everybody would be on board. And I wish I hadn't done that. I wish we'd finished Finding Albert and had like a big gig and sort of ended it very like kind of more obvious way, because I felt we kind of let people down a little bit because they were sort of expecting things, and we just sort of simmered down a little bit. And then this new thing popped out of nowhere. So
well, I think certainly from a fan's point of view, because I always have been a fan, and I'm very privileged to be able to call you a friend as well, because we catch up and we have coffee and laugh a lot.
Have a gossip.
We don't gossip. We pass on interesting news. There's a difference. So, from a fan's point of view, Robert and I had met several times, and you'd intimated what was happening, and being part of a radio station and also being part of a local music scene was very, very difficult, because people had an expectation that I would know what was going on, and I was like, no. And I think it was the same because you have got quite a close knit, and there was people who were in the know, and then the news broke that all of Finding Albert's music had been removed from Spotify.
I still get so much grief over that. It's crazy.
Honestly, and it could have been headline news in the Standard.
Again, I think people think it was like a really deliberate thing, and it was basically the subscription ran out and I didn't renew it, and like. But again, it's like that smart, because again, like it's funny talking about Finding Albert here, because outside of Dumfries and Galloway and Scotland, nobody knows that I've done that before, or I've done anything like that before. It's a very specific thing for around here, but obviously it means a lot to me and the guys that are in the band. So like when the music went down, like it's one of the things that people say to me most, "What happened to your songs on Spotify? I used to love that song." I think like discs were getting handed round, sort of for getting burnt copies and things.
No, that's illegal. We don't do that.
Absolutely.
Okay, we do not do that in the slightest. But obviously, Finding Albert came to an end, and before we move on to where we are now, years went past.
Yes.
Tumbleweed blew across, and then there was the decision to do the gig as Finding Albert at the venue, which was struck by lockdowns.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So I hated lockdown, as everyone did, and towards the kind of the end of the first one, I had the opportunity to go. It was back in the time when you had tiers, remember? So you could move within tier 1 to tier 1 and all that stuff. So anyway, the opportunity came for me to go and work in a studio on the Isle of Lewis, which was also tier 1. So I was like, I'm going to do that. So this studio is like, it's incredible. It bills itself as the most remote studio in Europe, and it's just insane. Like it takes an eternity to get there. It's on its own on an island off the island. It's just unbelievable, like unbelievable. So anyway, so I'd booked myself in for a sort of week of writing there, and I'd said to the guys, it's a residential studio, so you're the only person there as well. It's an abandoned. It's an old crab factory back in the day. It's been converted to a studio. So it's like, I'm okay with stuff like that, but some people would be freaked out by it, because it's super dark, there's nobody there, you're on it, like it's basically like an ITV drama. And
you're selling it really well.
I love that. That's right up my street.
I'm going to ask you a quick question. Did anybody not come back?
No.
Right, they all made it. That's fine.
We all
counted
down at the end.
So it's not going to be like Stranger Things.
It's all good. No, that's fine.
I don't even know what that is, but carry on.
So yeah, anyway, long story short, I invited the guys up, and I invited Tatty up as well, because I hadn't seen him for ages. And my bass player in Finding Albert. He doesn't play an honor, but I hadn't seen him for ages, and he's just like one of my best mates. So we all came up, because I think everyone was just desperate to sort of do something that wasn't sitting in their house watching Tiger King. So we all came up north and we had such a great time. I was writing and recording during the day. The guys were going fishing and doing all kinds of mad stuff, and then we would sort of congregate at night we'd listen to some music, and we talked about Finding Albert, which we'd never really done before. And just by chance that week, Steve and Abby, who had filmed and completely produced the DG1 show that we did back in the day, had uploaded the entire set just that week. And so we sat and watched it. Because again, we feel like fans now, weirdly. Like it kind of wasn't our thing because we're so detached now. So we had a few beers and we sat and watched this gig start to finish, and we laughed about like people hitting wrong notes and like me making an arse of things, and we just had such a good time. Sort of, do you remember this? And do you remember that? And we had such a good time watching it. And we thought it'd be nice to do that again. Do you know what I mean? It'd be nice to sort of rekindle that. So we decided that once lockdown was up, we would do a sort of reunion show and see how it went. And it was really good fun. Really, really good fun.
Yes, it was. And I missed it. I was free for the first date, I was working for the second. I'm not going to forgive you for that one.
Yeah, there's a few people saying that.
Right, shall we have another song?
Absolutely, yeah. What should I play now? Let me think. I'll tell you what, I'll play, I've got a new song I might play.
Yeah, of course. Ooh, honoured. Honoured. I didn't mean that, sorry.
25 minutes song. Okay, so I've been writing like a demon for like the last year or so, and this is one of the songs that I've written called House on Fire. So if it's super rough, you'll know why, because I haven't actually played it to an audience before. So. People say that you and I get on like a house on fire. If they'd ever seen a house on fire, then they'd be right. The cruelty of love lay blind, the sentimental smoke in your eyes when you realize you've built a life in a house on fire. But it's you I want, yeah, it's you I want, yeah, it's you I want in a house on fire. And the blessing and the curse is I feel better feeling worse just for a moment. My thoughts swim into focus. Black coffee, white powder, love toxin, small hours, dejection to desire via service station flowers. It's you I want in a house on fire. People say that you and I get on like a house on fire. And the blessing and the curse is I feel better feeling worse. For a moment, my thoughts swim into focus. The kingdom, the glory, the share of purgatory with that bloodstained torn t-shirt. Good God, it's nice to meet you. Thank you. Cheers. Thank you very much.
And ladies and gentlemen, he was scared that was going to sound rough.
A couple of bum notes in the second verse, right?
Did anybody notice any bum notes? There you go, be quiet, young man. So, as I say, we had the removal of everything on Spotify for a far less dramatic reason than everybody thought. It was money. And then we had the birth of ONR.
Yes.
Now, at the time, there was, again, Dumfries is great, speculation. The announcement came that you were ONR.
Yes.
The band wasn't. So there was always the talk of, what's happened? Have all the boys gone? But no, you had a new addition in Sean McCall.
Yeah.
From Sean versus the Robots, and prior to that, of course, Calvin Harris. So it's like you're gathering them up and giving them a big cuddle to make sure that they're okay.
Yeah.
So what was the decision behind you being ONR? Was that your choice? Was that a publishing deal's choice? Was it?
It was my choice. Yeah, I was starting to get more into production at that point. Like right through the Finding Albert times, I was a songwriter and a musician, and that's kind of like I wanted somebody else to deal with production at that stage. But I really started to get into it towards the end of the Finding Albert times. Faints, for example, I produced most of that, along with Dave Miller, who's amazing. And so I kind of felt like this new phase, whatever it would be really quite production heavy, and I kind of wanted that had to come from me. I felt like if it was a band but it was a production thing, it would be a bit weird if you were doing feature tracks or if you were doing other artists and things. And also I saw it as a kind of way of like having the band be part of it without it just looking like a kind of cynical rebrand as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I really didn't want people to just think, oh, here it's Finding Albert Mark II, which it essentially is, incidentally. But yeah, it felt like the way that we could kind of keep that going and kind of stay relevant and cool and allow me to have maybe a little bit more creative control over songs, and not that I didn't have that much, but like, you know, I was able to go a bit more electronic and a bit more sort of down that road. And the other truth of it is that I had started writing to try and please other people towards the end of Finding Albert, and I didn't realise at the time, and you never realise it at the time as a writer, but looking back, I definitely was. And I remember really vividly listening to the Suburbs, Arcade Fire, in the old van that we had. It was the only CD. Actually, it got stuck in the CD player. It was the only CD you could listen to. And I remember listening to it myself in the van one day and just thinking, like, this is an absolute masterpiece. This, you know, there has been no. They haven't thought about how this is going to go on radio, or like, oh, this will get the audience going, or this. They've just written brilliant music. You know what I mean? Just an incredible piece of art. And it's probably as close to sort of a eureka moment as I've had, really. And I kind of went away thinking, that's the next thing that I do. I really want that to be at the heart of what I'm doing, you know. And
you did, because you came back with American Gods. Jericho first, wasn't it?
Jericho was the first release.
Yeah. Jericho, which I do find very, very strange, because again, initially the hubbub was, it's about Jericho Loch.
It's about Jericho.
Yeah, if you listen to the words, clearly about Jericho Loch. This didn't dawn on me until the other day. I've just released my first single as well. I saw that. And it's called Jericho.
I listened to it just to make sure it wasn't a cover.
It was not.
Sue your ass.
Thank you very much. No, it's not. It is a cover, but not of yours.
That's fine. That's
I've taken a country ballad and turned it into a country rock song. But then you really did go down almost the concept art route with American Gods, because it's almost like an operetta.
Thank you.
With all the different levels that's in it. And was any of that in your mind when you wrote it? Because it just... I find the same with a lot of musicians, the same as I do with artists, that when they get into a phase like that, it's almost like you're just pouring everything that's inside out.
Yeah. It definitely was a bit like that, actually. Yeah. American Gods was a weird one because I had the verse and the bridge and stuff for ages, and I loved it. I felt it was that I was listening to loads of Scary Monsters by David Bowie at that time, and like I felt it had that cool sort of like almost sort of like Jailhouse Rock delivery to it and stuff, you know, which I loved. But I couldn't get a chorus for it, man. It was killing me. It was really, really killing me. And then it came to me, the Neil Gaiman book, obviously, American Gods. I read that and just started singing that line. It's incredibly repetitive, obviously, but it just kind of worked. And I kind of liked the idea, because the verses were quite complicated and there was lots of weird modulations and stuff, and it was, you know, the lyrics were, you know, on the verge of heaviness. I felt actually just having this sort of mad sing-along one-line thing in the chorus might really, really work.
But even within that, it's become in itself quite anthemic.
Yeah, it definitely builds. Yeah, it's that one was produced by Mark Crew, who does all the Bastille stuff. So I went down and recorded with him. He was amazing. He was really, really great. Do you
remember earlier on I talked about a famous friend who liked to be a name dropper?
I'm really sorry.
No, not at all.
It should be like a klaxon, you know, like a buzzer.
No, we're here to learn.
But yeah, he's awesome. He's so good. I picked up so much from working with him as well. So that's, you know, we were very clear early doors that we wanted that sort of big 80s Bowie, like confident sort of feel.
Oh, you got it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it turned it really good. You know, and it was a big track for me at the time. It was quite an important one. So,
but also it was. I feel that. I mean, I love Jericho, the first track, but I think that when American Gods came out, that was a huge bust on the scene for ONR, because that was you putting your stamp. No longer Finding Albert, no longer Robert Shields, who released an album that we did not know about. I will find it. And I will, and I'll make it digital again. I'll pay for the subscription on Spotify. And then we just had this change, and it was just like, bang.
Yeah, it was very deliberate as well, definitely. You know, I really wanted that as well, because ONR is completely different to Finding Albert in that from word go, we had management, we had like all of these things just happened. When we released Jericho, for whatever reason, I have no idea, but things just went do, and all of a sudden we had like a management and label and a booking agent, things that we dreamt of having with Finding Albert, you know, and it was, things became easier and harder in different ways, but making songs like American Gods was my attempt to kind of step up to that, I guess, as well. Do you know what I mean? And it's hard because, again, like I spoke about earlier, I wanted stuff that was cool and sort of had like credibility to it, but I also wanted things that you could sing along to and like people would, you know, jump up and down to, and getting the balance. That for me, that is like the perfect songwriter, and my heroes are always the ones that can dress complexity as simplicity. You know what I mean? So they can do these mad modulations and have these very intricate sort of lyrics that are a metaphor for the Russian Civil War, or whatever it is, you know. But you can also have 40,000 people jumping up and down mindlessly, you know, and everything in between. Those are the best sort of artists. So
that's something that, to me, that's something like ELO have always managed as well.
Absolutely, yeah, totally.
Because that is just all over the place. Okay, shall we have another song?
Yes, I'll play one of the first songs released as ONR. Really knocked that down.
We did say it might go at some point during the night, but we did think it'd be me. They've actually moved that table further away from me because they thought I was going to send it flying.
So yeah, I think this was the second song I released as ONR. It's the track called 5 Years Time. Have I told you of the dark in me? Go easy on me, please. Have I told you of the vice I need? Go easy on me, please. Any particular time, I could leave it right here. I slide it back beneath. But if you knew, you might leave me too. Let's see Let's see where we lie in 5 years' time. Let's see where we lie in 5 years' time. Is it simple? Is it brave enough to go gentle into the cut? Any particular time that you feel it all move, that you feel it all move? 'Cause if you knew, you might leave me too. Let's see where we lie in 5 years' time. Let's see where we lie in 5 years' time. Let's see where we lie in 5 years' time. Since sayonara, sign my name in time. 'Cause every thought of leaving her crying. I've got more presents than Jennifer. I'm so in line. So let's see where we lie in 5 years' time. Thank you, cheers.
So, just a couple more things. We'll have another song, then we're going to have an interval for about 20 minutes. So you can go and get some libations at the bar. Spend your money.
Or leave.
Hey?
Or leave.
No, don't leave. don't listen to him. This is how you sell yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're going to get on to the burning question now that I know is on nobody's lips but mine. Right? When you first came out, and I told you I made a mistake earlier. ONR had a full stop.
Yeah, it did.
Now ONR doesn't have a full stop. But on the posters that somebody made, he suddenly realised that the full stop was still there. And Robert got in touch with me and went, by the way, I don't use the full stop anymore. And I want to know why. I want to know what did the full stop do that was so offensive that it got cut from the lineup altogether?
Okay. So it was a branding thing to begin with, because I was worried people would call it ONR, which everyone does anyway, so it was totally pointless. So yeah, and then when we rebranded for an album release, we dropped the full stop because weirdly every graphic designer we were working with was getting really annoyed because for whatever reason it knocks it off centre because the rest, it starts with an O, so the O doesn't line up and all kinds of mad. So they were like, this is, throwing hissy fits and be like,
I'm actually going to be perfectly honest, when I was trying to find the lettering for it.
Oh really?
It did the exact same thing and I was getting so frustrated. I tell you what I did.
Raider font, bold. You should text me. But
well, you'd be great the day after a national disaster, wouldn't you? So what I actually did in the end, this is the thing, I had to put a separate cell in.
Right.
So I put ONR, not knowing that the full stop wasn't there, and then put a full stop in a separate cell by itself and lined it up.
Yeah, that sounds awful.
I wasted time on that and he didn't even tell me. Okay, so that's burning question number 1 from only me. Cool. Right? There is other people who have said to me that they want to know, and we've had this conversation many times. You do this to yourself a lot. The number 1 question in Finding Albert was,
who's Albert?
Yeah, who's Albert? Right? And the answer was,
no, it was an asteroid. It was back in the day. I have to remember this. So yeah. So in the 1800s, it was very fashionable to go meteorite spotting. It was like a thing that gentlemen did. But there was no central referencing point.
It's got a different name now.
Has it?
Yeah, let's not talk about that.
Okay. So it was like there was no central referencing point for these things. So what would happen is these things would be discovered and then they might go missing. So anyway, there was a central referencing system eventually set up, but they couldn't find one meteor, one asteroid that was logged, and they were starting to think, is it a hoax? Was it a find or whatever it was, and eventually found it, and it was called Albert 719. So that's where the band name came from, and there's a song called Albert 719 that is about that as well.
There you go.
There you go.
Let's see if he's got a very good explanation for this one. ONR.
Yeah, that's much less interesting. So, well, again, when I set up as something new, and just what I spoke to you about earlier with the sort of change of feel and like trying to retain a bit of artistic sort of integrity about the writing and things, like I really wanted a name that reflected that. So, ONR was something that I liked, and then obviously we changed the spelling so it was sort of cool and trendy and nobody knew how to say it.
And of course everybody said ONR.
Yeah, which I actually prefer now. I well wish we'd called it ONR. It would have been much better.
And the first time we ever talked about ONR was the lead up to your launch night in the venue, actually, where you did the set twice.
Oh my God, Ali,
Do you remember that night?
Yeah.
I've got a T-shirt from that night. Robert was very, very kind to give me a T-shirt. He obviously hasn't looked at the size of my body to the size of the T-shirt that he gave me, but it sat very nicely in my drawer ever since. Thanks. I looked at it the other day and I went, nope. So we were having a conversation, and then I was asking, I think we were gone for a coffee, so I was saying, ONR or honour? And back then it was honour. What does it stand for? And he literally looked at me and went, nothing. And I said, yes, it does. Do you remember what I said?
Yeah, you said it was One Night Romance.
I like that. I think it's a nice name.
It's well better than mine. Again, but did you read that thing by Bono? Did the interview just a couple of weeks ago, and he said that he hates the name U2. Like everybody hates their band name.
Yeah.
Like you love your band name for 6 weeks, and then you hate it for the entire duration of the rest of the band's life, and that's how it works. So I'm fine with it.
Well, I remember there was an interview in 2001 with Billy Joel from Green Day.
Oh yeah.
And he literally turned it around and said that Green Day is the stupidest band name of all time.
Totally.
Not a big band at all.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's true. Okay, so we're going to have one more song.
Yeah.
And then we're going to have a 15 to 20 minute break. Let Robert go and roll down the turtleneck and let some air out.
Yeah, I think I'm going to need to, mate. I'm genuinely not joking.
These lights are rather warm up here.
Yeah.
So what are we going to have now?
Let me think. I think I'll probably play another piano track. I think I'll go for... let me have a think.
It's like Mastermind, isn't it?
No, actually, I meant to play another one on the guitar, actually. If that's...
Okay, it's not like Mastermind. I take that back.
Very far removed from Mastermind, I'll tell you that. So yeah, this is another song that released. It's about the third or fourth last release that ONR put out. It's a track called Crash Landing. You sit at the window for the view. I'll just spend the whole time watching you. All the little games that we go through. Honey, I'll be red. You were always the blues. I'm coming down, crash landing now. Don't get stressed, I'll figure it out. Holy shit. When did it get so rough? I'm alright to swear, aren't I? Stars in their eyes, sentimental science, big cash prize. And God, I want a dog, but the time's never right. Yeah, we can play, but we have to be real quiet. I'm coming down, crash landing now. Go get dressed, I'll figure it out. Holy shit. When did it get so rough? Oh, holy shit. When did it get so rough? You sit at the window just spend the whole time watching you. Oh, holy shit. When did it get so rough? Thank you. Cheers.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of the first part of the living room sessions with Robert Shields. We'll be back with you in about 15 or 20 minutes. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, Robert Shields.
Thank you.